So today we will continue with evaluation, right? So evaluation from last time. So evaluation. So you guys have the handout, right? The new handout. So evaluation, let's do a review from last time. So evaluation has to do with the way a speaker or a writer inserts himself, right? So the ways in which the writer or speaker intrudes, right, into the text to signal his relationship with the text and with the reader or with the listener, right? Because when you write about something or when you speak about something, you have to indicate your stance, your position about the text, about the topics, right? About the text or the topic, same thing, and about the reader or the listener, right? So think about when you talk to people, you have to express your idea that what you think about, let's say, discrimination, racial discrimination, whether you agree or not agree with it, your position, your 입장, for example, right? So you have to signal your relationship with the text all the time, whether you write or you speak. And also, you have to signal your relationship with the reader or with the listener, right? In order to persuade or in order to make him change his position, or at least to make him accept your position, right? So both are important. Signal your relationship with the text or the topic and with the reader or with the listener, right? So both are important, not just your opinion about the text, right? But you have to convince, right? For convincing, right? So you have to convince the reader or the listener. So your relationship with the reader or the listener is also important, apart from your relationship with the text, right? So both are important. That's why when we analyze evaluation, we have two concepts, remember from last time. So we have the concept of stance and we have the concept of stance and also engagement, remember from last time, right? And in language, in real life, the two overlap, right? The two concepts overlap, and sometimes an item could be a stance and also could be an engagement device at the same time. But when we do analysis, it's good to start with that. And when you do analysis yourself, not everybody will agree upon how you distinguish. There might not be a clear-cut line between stance and engagement, as long as you have a reason behind it that, or you classify this as a stance marker or you classify this as an engagement marker, is good. And as long as you do it consistently when you analyze something, right? So for stance devices, we have maybe 4 or 5 kinds, right? So for example, attitude marker, things that you like or you don't like, things that you desire or not desire, like that, right? So attitude marker, things that you think are important or not important, right? Attitude marker, and also what else do we have from last time? Hedge, right? Hedge. When you withdraw your commitment from a proposition, right? That you are not sure about something, you're not 100% sure. So the opposite of hedge is the booster, right? So booster, like this, right? So attitude marker, hedge, booster, and also sometimes you have to explicitly, right? Explicitly signal your stance. So you use self-mention, right? Self-mention, I argue that, my position is that, and so on, right? So these are stance marking devices. So you mark your position, right? You mark your position about the text, right? About the topic or about the text. So you use these things, right? And these are, remember, explicit marker. Explicit marker meaning you actually see it and people actually hear it, right? That's why we define evaluation as the way that the writer or the speaker intrudes into the text, how he shows up into the text, right? How he is present in the text, so that the listener or the reader knows what your 입장, what your position is, right? And then the other side of the coin is engagement devices, right? Again, explicit marker that involve, right? That explicit markers that involve the listener. For example, you can use question, right? You can use questions, and you can use commands or directive, right? That we studied last time, right? Commands, questions, command, like this, right? And reader pronouns, like you or even we, like that, for example. Right? So what we'll do is we'll try to spot explicit markers, okay? Explicit markers of stance and engagement devices. So I have 10 sentences here, 10 examples here. Can you spot and then underline or circle, doesn't matter. Can you spot and underline explicit stand markers and engagement markers in these sentences? So I'll give you 2 minutes and I'll go around the room here, right? Starting from here first. 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have 9. Maybe there's 1, or in some cases there might be 2 per sentences. Stance and engagement markers are explicit, right? Explicit lexical items or explicit grammatical items. So we must see them, right? We must see them. So attitude markers, things that you think are good, bad, complete, not complete, desirable, not desirable, reliable, unreliable, like that. Good quality, bad quality, like that, right? Hedge, not 100% sure. Booster, to boost your commitment, right? And then self-mention, this one is obvious. My position is something that indicates this is your position, like that. And engagement, question, commands, reader pronouns. Okay, 30 seconds more. So these are all from academic discourse, dissertation, or academic paper, right? Just to show you that when you write, you actually have to do it like this, meaning that you have to put in your stance and engagement markers when you write a good paper. So attitude marker, things that are good, bad, reliable, not reliable, important, not important. Hedge and booster, they have to do with how firm, how certain, how steady you are towards the truth of a preposition, towards the truth of a sentence, self-mention, I or we, like that, my position. So question, commands, you, everyone knows, and reader pronouns, everyone knows, right? You or we, like that. Okay, so number 1. So starting from this side. The camera tracking module is the most crucial part of virtual studio systems. So where is the writer's stance? Where is the writer relationship to this sentence? Yes, most crucial, right? So to us as readers, right? We are readers here. We know that the position of the writer is he thinks that the camera tracking module is Very important, right? Very important part. So that's his opinion. Is it our opinion? No, it's his opinion. So this is an example of a stance marker, which is which can be classified as an attitude marker, right? The most crucial to him, and he is trying to persuade us to buy, to think along the same line, right? That is crucial, like that. Number two. Yes, major advantages, both, right? So major is big, right? Not small. So, and then advantage, we know that he thinks of that thing, code division, multiple access system, as having advantages, many advantages. So we have major advantages as attitude markers, right? Anything else? Flexibility, right? The system is flexible, right? So far, so good. Number three.
I think groundbreaking is attitude marker.
Yes, groundbreaking is attitude marker, right? So this methodology is new and is very, very influential, powerful, like that. So groundbreaking, right? So this is how to claim a good position in your paper, right? A groundbreaking methodology, a groundbreaking theory, like that, pioneering, like that, okay? So number five. No, number four. Number four.
We say unreliable.
Yes.
As an attitude marker.
Yes, unreliable. So we know that he thinks that is not good, right? Not reliable. So unreliable is an attitude marker. Anything else? Limited, right? Limited meaning that it has some shortcomings, right? And also peculiar, right? So peculiar is unusual. So in his opinion, does he agree with the technique or not agree with the techniques? Not agree, right? Because he said that the techniques are unreliable and limited, right? So the techniques are only limited to unusual cases. So he doesn't agree. So typically attitude marker, this is not limited to adjective or adverbs only, but some nouns like advantages, advantages or disadvantages like this are attitude markers, okay? So typically things that you can qualify like good, bad, reliable, not reliable, advantages or not advantages, like that. So the adjective form or adverb forms and also nominal forms, they count as attitude markers, okay? Number five. Major shortcoming, right? Big shortcoming, right? Shortcoming is a weakness, right? A weakness. So major and shortcoming as attitude marker also, okay? Number six. Number six, we have little, right? Little. So lacking in attention, little attention. Attitude marker also. Anything else? Scientific, not really attitude, because scientific doesn't have to do with good or bad, right? We usually think of something that's scientific as good, right? But the word scientific itself shows no attitude. But what shows the attitude here, maybe if you look one or two words before, lack of support in scientific fact. So lack of support, lack, right? Lack meaning that it's a shortcoming, it's a weakness, right? So lack is a good one here. And then lack of interest also that you can see. Scientific itself is not an attitude marker. So scientific is just a word, right? That has no attitude, right? Unless we see that the author signal his attitude about scientific is good or whether something scientific is good or bad. But just the word scientific itself carries no attitude, right? But here, what carries the attitude is lack of support in scientific facts. So the word lack here is the attitude marker. Just like words like bomb. We might think that, oh, bomb or explosion. 폭탄, right? So bomb or explosion might be bad because we use bomb to kill people, to cause murder, like that. But the word itself, bomb or explosion, has no attitude, right? So unless there's something like killing bomb or something that signals the attitude that is bad. But the word itself, the bomb or explosion, has no good or bad aspect, desirable or undesirable. It's the context that will tell us that the bomb is good or not good, and so on, right? Just like the word scientific here, okay? Let's see. What about number 7? Number 7.
I didn't attend the class last week, but I think it is apparent that it's engagement.
Apparent could be the booster, right? The booster, because it shows that it's you are clear, right? Obvious. And also there's another category of share. What is it? Share knowledge or appeals to share knowledge, right? That the writer tries to persuade that it's also clear to the reader, right? So for this one, it could be either booster or it could be also share knowledge. So you might ask me, oh, so why is not clear, right? As to what category? As I said before, some words there might not be a clear-cut line between whether it's a stance or whether it's an engagement, because some words can work both ways, right? Some words do two functions at the same time. That's possible. So when you do analysis, what do you do, right? When you actually do the discourse analysis yourself, you have to write in your paper, you have to state that, oh, this is my criteria. I regard apparent as share knowledge because X, Y, Z. And you treat it like that throughout the paper, throughout your analysis. Not like you do it as a booster one time and you do it as a share knowledge one time, not like that. So as long as you are consistent and as long as you have a criterion for it, that's good, right? So people might not agree on everything because, again, there's no clear-cut line. The clear-cut line here is just for the beginning step only. It's useful to think of evaluation markers as consisting of this type and this type. But in fact, things could work both ways. Like questions, for example. Questions could work as a stance marker also. Like you guys know rhetorical questions like, oh, how absurd is that? Like this. The point of view of the writer is clear here, right? That the writer or the speaker thinks that it's stupid, it's absurd, it's ridiculous. So it could function as a stance marker too. But because the form is a question, we can also classify it as an engagement marker. Just to kind of push the conversational turn, if this is in a conversation, to the listener. If I say, how absurd is that? Then I wait for another person to respond to that. So it could be an engagement marker, right? So in cases like this, right, you just have to state, when you do the analysis, you just have to state your criterion, why I consider this a stance marker, why I consider that an engagement marker, and do it consistently, and that's good, okay? Number 8.
Number 8, the importance is an attitude marker.
Yes. So importance is an attitude marker, right? Importance is an attitude marker. Attest could be an booster as well, because attest, you guys know the word attest, right? Attest is show as the evidence, evidently show, like that. Attest to, right? Attest to. Number 9.
Number 9, is widely accepted as a share knowledge.
Yes, widely accepted, right? Widely accepted as the attitude marker, right? Number 10, we have well established, right? Dialogic is well established in the literature, meaning that a lot of people believe it, right? Well established is an attitude marker also. So this is what we studied last time, right? And last time we didn't finish, if we continue, right? We didn't finish the concept of attribution versus avowal, right? So this can be even more confusing because, again, when we do evaluation, we can choose to attribute our evaluation to other people, right? So attribute is when you suggest that the responsibility of doing the evaluation lies in another person. So attribute, the word is attribute, right? So attribute, so you push the responsibility of evaluation to another person. Okay? You push the responsibility of evaluation to another person. So that's attribute, right? To attribute is to assign something to someone, right? Whereas when you do avowal, right? Aver, the verb aver is to assert or to claim. So you accept the responsibility. Accept the responsibility of evaluation to yourself, right? So there's that distinction. So the line might be clear-cut here that when you do attribution, you push the responsibility of evaluation to another person. So you will see explicit, usually explicit marker of attribution. Meaning that you usually see some phrases, some sentences, some expressions that are about pushing the responsibility. So for example, he said that, let's say XYZ. This is the attributed marker. He said that is not my word, right? It's not my word, it's his words, right? It's his words. So this is what we say what we call an explicit marker of attribution, right? It's not mine, it's not my word, like that. Okay? For the avowal, do you see is minus, right? Minus the explicit marker, Usually. So for the attribution is plus explicit marker, like this, right? But for the avowal, it's minus explicit marker. So the default case, you know, usually what we say is our own responsibility, right? We claim the truth of that sentence, right? So for example, if I say Obama is wrong. Obama is wrong. There is no explicit marker of attribution, right? Obama is wrong. There's no explicit marker like he said that, he thinks that, like that. So it's minus explicit marker, minus marker of responsibility. So in this case is a plain avowal, okay? On the other hand, if I have that explicit marker, for example, the reporter said that Obama was wrong. Now, I clearly attribute that statement, Obama was wrong, to the reporter. It's not my word, it's his word. So in this case, it's clear attribution, right? It's not my word, it's not my responsibility. If you don't believe that, go and ask that reporter, like that, okay? but Obama is wrong, it's my responsibility, right? Now, there is this confusing case in between the averral and attribution. It could be like this. Let's see, I have this on the second page towards the beginning. Let's say yesterday's poll suggested that Obama was wrong, Obama was guilty. Or tests show that Obama was guilty, Obama was wrong. Here you might be tempted to think that, oh, the source is someone else, not me. Tests show, right? The tests say that, or yesterday's poll say that, right? You might be tempted to think about it like that. But in fact, if you look at these two sentences one more time, it's my interpretation, if I say this, right? It's my interpretation. Tests show that Obama was wrong. I looked at the test and I interpreted the test that way, right? Same thing, yesterday's poll suggests that. So I look at the poll and I make the interpretation because the poll itself cannot say anything. And also because it has to be a human being, someone that interprets the results of the poll, right? And it has to be someone that interprets the result of the test, right? Just like if you look at people's score on Sunnung or whatever, you interpret the score as to whether he can pass or he cannot pass, he is a good student, he's not a good student. It's your interpretation. The scores themselves do not say anything. It's you that interpret the score. TOEFL score, TOEIC score, right? Is your interpretation based on what you see, right? Based on the scores that you see, based on the results of the test, based on the results of the poll. So in this case, still is your interpretation. So we call it source-based averral. So this is an in-between case. Why? Because it's your interpretation. You take the responsibility for interpreting the results, the scores, the whatever, right? But you base your interpretation on a source or on several sources like test or poll. So this one is in between, right? The test cannot say. The test cannot say that someone is guilty or not, right? Let's say you are pulled over by a police officer, right? At night, and you had been drinking, right? And you had to do the breathalyzer, right? So breathe in and breathe out like that to determine whether you are wrong or not. But it has to be human beings, right? Who interpret whether the, let's say, the green signs mean what, the red signs mean what, right? So, but you base your interpretation on the source, the light, green or red, to show that you are drunk or not drunk. So it's the same thing, right? So it's your responsibility of interpreting, but you base your interpretation on a source. So we call it source-based averral. So for the first one, it's just plain meaning is based on yourself, not on anything. And this one is clear, attribution. But the in-between case, source-based averral, right? That is based on a source, not your, right? Not the source that says it, but your interpretation of the source. So we call it source-based averral, like this one, okay? Now, what we'll do is we'll need to do some practice because this one is difficult, right? And let me give you one example here before we actually do the exercise. Let's see. See. But Songho, let's have a picnic. So Songho says, let's have a picnic. I said, but the weather forecast said it's gonna rain today, let's say. So we'll focus on this. Right. We'll focus on that one, okay? Now, what is Krista doing here? Krista is suggesting to Songho, right, implicitly that let's not go, right, because it's gonna rain. That's how we normally interpret the sentence, right? So it's not a good idea, in other words. So Krista is saying it's not a good idea to go picnic today because blah blah blah. It's gonna rain, like that, right? So the sentence as a whole here, the sentence as a whole, who makes that sentence? Who makes the sentence? Krista, right? So Krista makes the sentence as a whole, right? Krista, in other words, says that it's not a good idea. So in this case, we can say that it's an avert statement, right? It's an avert statement. Because it means Krista averts. Krista argues that, Krista asserts that, and then whatever in the sentence is not a good idea. It's not a good idea. Or Krista averts that the weather forecast says it's gonna rain. Right? So this is the meaning, it's not a good idea. So it's an avert sentence. As a whole, it's an avert sentence because Krista makes that statement and Krista asserts, Krista claims that it's not a good idea. In other words, the weather forecast said it's gonna rain. Right? So the statement as a whole is an avowal, okay? Because Krista make that statement, and it's Krista's idea of pandehada, right? To refuse his invitation, like that. So that's on one level. So here comes another level. You see, there is this part. The weather forecast said it's gonna rain. Krista, on one level, Krista averts that the whole statement, right? It's Krista's own statement, the whole thing. But as he's averting or as he's asserting the sentence, he also quotes, he also cites from another source, which is the weather forecast, right? So he also attributes, in this case, he also attributes. So this statement is also attributed to the weatherman or the weather forecast. So this example is to show you that whenever we have an attribution, whenever we have an attributed statement, there is always the avert part to it also. The sentence as a whole, again, to say it one more time, the sentence as a whole, Krista makes it, right? So it's Krista's idea of pandehada, right? He is refusing Songho's idea. So the statement as a whole is my idea. I assert that it's not a good idea, like that. But at the same time as he's doing that avowal, at the same time as he's doing that assertion, he also cites or he also attributes the statement, this statement that it's gonna rain to the weather forecast, perhaps to tell Songho that, oh, there's evidence of it going to rain, like that, right? So this might be complicated, but whenever, so we can say it like this, that whenever we see an attributed part, you see this is the explicit marker, right? Set that explicit marker of attribution. Whenever we see an attribution, we usually see, and we also see the overall part before it also. Okay. Based on the notion that it's us, it's a speaker who makes the whole sentence anyway. So that's the overall part. But as he's making an overall, or as he is making an assertion, he's also attributing it to someone else. Okay? So whenever we see the attribution, we always see the overall part also. Okay? So let's look at number 1, and we will go through 1 and 2 together. Number 1, I underline the whole statement. Okay? Some people watching on TV thought that that is not there, but thought that the performance was too mannered to appeal to the wider audience at home. So source of the utterance. For an overall, the source is self, right? Self meaning the writer self, the speaker self, right? But for the attribution, the source is other. Could be another person, could be the weatherman, could be anything, okay? So for an overall, the source is self. For the attribution, the source is other, right? For the source-based overall, the source is still self, but we base that source on another source, okay? Now, some people watching on TV thought the performance too mannered to appeal to the wider audience at home, too polite, in other words. So the whole statement that I underline is an overall or an attribution. If there is a lack of the explicit marker of attribution, everything is overall, right? So in this case, I underline the whole thing. So it's just like I'm saying to Song Ho, you know, some people watching TV thought the performance too polite. I make my own statement. So it's an overall, right? So this is an overall. So the source of the utterance is self, myself. Self, you can write self, okay? Self, not other. It's myself, okay? It's myself. Now, in number 2, if we look at number 2, it's different because here I underline the performance was too mannered to appeal to the wider audience at home, right? So this is different. Now for this one, you see that there is a marker of attribution, right? The marker is thought. So those people thought. What I'm doing here is I'm reporting what those people were thinking. So the underlined part is the attributed part, okay? Because I attribute that thought, the performance was too mannered to some people, okay? I attribute that part to some people, not my thinking, it's those people thinking. So for this one, it's an attribution. For this part, it's an attribution. The source is other people or some people, right? As to the subject of this sentence, some people. So the source is other, okay? Again, number 1 and number 2 show you that whenever you see an attribution, you always see an overall in the front of it, right? In English at least, right? Depending on what part you're talking about. Okay, so that's why it's complicated. The evaluation is complicated because whenever you see an attribution, there's always the overt part in front of it. Okay. Now let's look at number 3. Number 3, as Pelé. Pelé is a football player, right? Long time ago. As Pelé, and then comma, perhaps the greatest ever footballer, said when he meaning Pelé, right? When he flew into Newcastle yesterday, many of the country's young stars appear to be losing touch with the qualities once made them role models. So I underline perhaps the greatest ever footballer. So this is an attitude marker, right? Greatest footballer, like that. And then there's also the H, perhaps. You see that? Now, my question is, that underlined part, is it an overall? Who makes that? Who makes that underlined part? Is it an overall or is it an attribution? It's an overall, right? It's the writer, right, is the writer who evaluates Pele, right, as the greatest ever football player, right, but he's not sure, perhaps. So in this case, it's an averral. That part is an averral, and the source then is self. Self meaning the writer in this case. Okay. Now, number four. Same thing, same as number three, but I underlined many of the country's youngsters appear to be losing touch with the qualities once made them role models. In this case, the underlined part is an averral or an attribution. Who made that? Pele. Pele said that, right? Pele said that. So it's an attribution. The source then is other, and to be specific is Pele, right? So the source is Pele or other people, not the writer, okay? So this is, when we do something like this, it's important when we analyze things like media discourse. In newspapers, right? Newspapers, news writers, news reporters can attribute something to some source, or they could use their own judgment to make an averral, right? News reporters. Sometimes, however, the two seem to be fused together so that it's hard to distinguish. Like this one, if we didn't know the concept of averral or attribution, we might not see that perhaps the greatest ever footballer belongs to the writer or the news reporter, but the other part belongs to Pele, for example. So in media discourse, this is an interesting part. Also in legal discourse and also in academic writing, right? Because in academic writing, you need to cite from some sources, you need to attribute the idea to the original sources, and you need to have your own part also, right? Your own claim, your own averral your own averse statement. So it's important to check whether which one belongs to which person, self or the other, and so on. Okay. Now there are many. So let's look at number 5 together, and then I'll have you work in pairs or by yourself. Number 5. Kachi. Right, Kachi. This is drug scandal star Rio Ferdinand out shopping on the day he was meant to have his dope test. Dope meaning marijuana test. The England ace who claims he forgot about the test as he was moving house, was seen near Manchester posh Harvey Nichols store. So meaning that the guy lied, right? So he claimed that he forgot about the test because he was moving, but he was seen near Manchester posh Harvey Nichols store. Now the source here of was seen, what is the source? Self or other? The source of the message here. In this case, it's very tricky. It's this one, source-based averral. So somebody saw him. He was seen, okay? So he was seen, let's say he was seen by Song Ho. He was seen by Song Ho shopping, right? So this one is just left out. Just he was seen, right? He was seen shopping near Harvey Nichols. Is just a name of the department store. So he was seen. But who made that statement? I made that statement, right? The reporter, the news reporter made that statement. Oh, he was seen by Song Ho, like that. So the statement is an averse statement. The news reporter made that statement, but he based his statement on another source, which is not named here. Could be Song Ho, could be Krista, could be paparazzi, who knows? But we know that the statement here is, I'm reporting. The news reporter is reporting that he was seen there. So it's an averral because it's the reporter that's doing that, but he based that on another source which is not named here, unnamed, right? So the source here is actually self for the base averral, source-based averral. The source is self, but that self bases his interpretation on something else. The poll, some other people, the test, like that. So for number 5, again, the source is self. Self meaning the reporter. Let's say that this is from media discourse, from the news reporter, from the paparazzi, for example. So the source is self, but that source bases his interpretation, his claim on another source which is unnamed. But the principal distinction is the source-based averral is still based on self. Okay, the self coming up with that claim, but he may have done the interpretation, or he may have listened to someone else, but didn't attribute that. Okay. The reason why we don't say that it's an attribution because, remember, there's the lack of explicit marker. Lack of explicit marker of attribution. He didn't attribute it to someone, right, that say that, but he reported it as if he saw it himself like that. Okay? Number six. So same statement, but I underline another part. This is drug scandal star Rio Ferdinand out shopping on the day he was meant to have his dope test, his marijuana test. The England ace who claims he forgot about the test as he was moving house was seen near Manchester posh is like modern, cool, like that. So the underlined part is an attributed statement or an averse statement. He forgot about the test as he was moving house. Who made that statement? He forgot about the test as he was moving house. The writer or the guy? The England ace who claims he forgot about the test as he was moving house, as here is because he was moving house. So who made that statement? Is there an explicit marker of attribution here, plus or minus? Plus, right? The England ace who claimed, right? He said that he forgot about the test, right? Who claims? He said that he forgot about the test. So he quotes, in other words, he paraphrased by quoting, he forgot about the test. So this guy said that, right? We are told that the guy claims he forgot, okay? So in this case, the source is Rio Ferdinand, right? Not the writer. There's the over part, claims, right? Claim is an is an attitude marker, right? When you say someone claims, meaning that you don't believe that person totally, right? He claims, he makes a claim like that. So, but the underlying part here is the attributed to England ace, okay? To the guy, Rio Ferdinand, right? That he said that. Okay, number seven. During her trial, she described herself as an excellent businesswoman, and the police have good reason to agree with that self-assessment. The police seem to have good reason to agree with that self-assessment. Now, in order to say whether it's an averral or an attribution, we look for a marker, right? We look for a marker of attribution. Is there an explicit marker of attribution that statement comes from someone else, not the writer? Is there an attribution marker? Is there an attribution marker here? For the police have good reason to agree with that self-assessment. There's no attribution marker here. The police have good reason, seem to have good reason to agree with that self-assessment. This is the reporter's statement, so it's an averral. So it's self. Now Abdul might be saying, oh, what about she describe herself as? Yes, that's an attribution marker, but it's an attribution marker for an excellent businesswoman. Good, right? And then end. And then the next sentence is the reporter's statement, not her statement. She just described herself as a good businesswoman. That's her word. And that's why you see the quotation marks, right? That's her word. But the sentence that comes after, and the police have good reason to agree with that self-assessment, is the writer's statement. Is the statement that comes to the writer, right? Oh, and the police seems to believe that well, like that, okay? So this answers also number 8, question number 8, right? During her trial, she described herself as an excellent businesswoman. That part is an attributed statement because we see the marker describe. She called herself. That word comes from her, not from the reporter, right? And we also see the quotation marks, right? This is clear that that word, that phrase, an excellent businesswoman, is her word, not the writer's word. So in this case, number 8, the source is other, which is she, whoever that is, okay? Number 9, we'll do to number 10. Number 9, the traditional definition of a sentence as a complete thought goes back to the ancient Indian and Greek grammarians, but the definition lacks persuasiveness. Now I underline the first part, the traditional definition of a sentence as a complete thought. That one is an attribution or an avowal. This is very, very clear when you see the quotation marks, right? When you see the quotation marks, the words cannot come from the writer, the speaker. The words in the quotation mark come from some other source. So in this case, then it's an attribution, right? So complete thought here is not the word of the writer, right? The definition of sentence as a complete thought is not a word of the writer. It's a word of other people, namely ancient Indian and Greek grammarians, like that, okay? This is clear. Now in number 10, however, number 10, there's the other part, but the definition lacks persuasiveness. In this case, it's an avowal or an attribution. Avowal, whose idea is it? It's the writer's idea that, oh, the traditional definition is bad, it's not complete, it's not reasonable, like that, it's not appealing. So in this case, he's evaluating the evaluation, right? As a complete, he's evaluating the avowal part. So in this case, in number 10, we have the self, the writer, as the source, okay? And this is what we do in academic writing, right? We cite the source, and for one thing, what we can do is we evaluate the source. We cite the source as, oh, this is what they say. It's a complete thought. However, in my opinion, it lacks persuasiveness. That's my idea. That's the writer idea, right? So we do that all the time in academic writing or even in conversation, right? We cite other people's wording and we evaluate them like this, okay? So for number 11 till 18 or 19, so I'll have you work in pairs. So in pairs we have about 9. So in pair, and then 3 ladies here work together, okay? So one pair should take maybe two sentences. So Yoon Young and Abdul, so we are at 10, right? So 11 and 12, 13 and 14, you guys, and then 15, 16, you guys, 17 and 18, okay? For a sentence, for example, 12 onwards, 12 to 18, I didn't underline anything. So this is your turn to tell me which part is an attribution, which part is an avowal. Okay?
Is
You guys, quotation, like citation like this can count as a marker, right? Evaluation, for example, evaluation consists of stance and engagement, parentheses, Highland 2005. So in this case, this is the marker, right? Marker of attribution, right? Because you can say Highland claims that evaluation consists of stance and engagement. So it's attributed, that statement is attributed to Highland like that, okay? So in this case, there is a marker, but it's just that you don't like it that way. Highland 2005 argues that evaluation consists of two things. You can write it this way, or in academic writing, there's this type of citation also. So that could be a marker of attribution, okay? In the case that we looked at before, like this one, evaluation consists of stance and engagement and then parentheses Highland 2001, right? So in this case, we say that this citation is a marker of attribution, right? Because it comes from Highland says that evaluation consists of stance and engagement like that, okay? Now, that can be an attribution marker, but it doesn't mean that all citations are attribution marker, like this one. So the statement here is the current interest, right? So people are interested in like the current interest in evaluation yearly to law. For example, Highland 2001, 2005, 2010 has given rise to studies in linguistic evaluation. So in this case, this is an example, right? This is an example that the author, that the writer cites, right, as support to show that, you know, that people are interested in, a lot of people are interested in the issue of evaluation. So in this case, these citations are not attribution markers, okay? Because it doesn't say that, it doesn't show Highland 2001, 2005, 2010. These studies do not say something. There's no statement that is attributed to that one, which is different from here. So not all citations are attribution markers, okay? Only some, only some. But some, again, some citations are attribution markers, but other citation markers are not attribution markers, okay? So be careful. So let's take a 10-minute break and then we'll come back and then we'll look at these instances. Where were we? Number 11, right? We were at number 11. So number 11, so this pair. So you guys, so the source for the underlined part is an attribution, right? Normal input and output conditions obtained like that. So it's an attribution, the source is other, and to be precise, the source is Searle, right? So Searle said that, right? So number 11, the source for that underlined part is other. To be precise, Searle, right? Searle said that, and that is an attribution, okay? So number 12, so the next pair, 12. Oh, 12? Oh, 12, okay. 12, same.
I think this is a verb.
And a verb, right? So the whole statement, MacDonald looked distraught as the verdict was read out in a Paris court on her 44th birthday. So the whole statement belongs to or came from the reporter, right? So to the reporter, she looked that way and so on. So it's an verb. And the source then is self, right? Self or the writer self, okay? Number 13, so the next pair. an overall, which part is an overall or which part is the attribution? There might not be attribution if there's no marker, right? So, the whole sentence is an overall. That's correct, right? So the whole sentence was made by the writer, whoever that was. So the whole sentence is an overall, okay? And that Heim citation, like this, Heim citation is not what he said. He didn't say that, oh, theoretical papers bore exactly on what we were attempting. So that statement is not attributed, right? So it's the writers. So there's no overall, there's no attribution. The whole statement is an overall, okay? And 14?
I think the whole sentence is an overall.
And
last sentence
seems
to attribution.
Yes. So you see the part in the quotation marks. Sociolinguistics seeks to discover the social rules that explain language behavior. That one is attributed to Fishman, right? Fishman, one statement of the aims of sociolinguistics from Fishman, page 3. And the other part is an overall, right? So only the part in the quotation marks. So 14, sociolinguistics seeks to discover blah 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 to behavior. That's an attribution. And then the other part is an overall. Okay. Number 16. 15. I'm sorry. 15. So here is tricky because everything here is fused together. Okay. If you read this carefully, it's just this learning of how to choose that lies at the root of socialized process in the child. It seems that Fisher says that. It seems that Fisher, 1971, page 218, you see even the location 218, right? It seems that Fisher says that, meaning that not exactly these words, but Fisher seems to make that statement, right? But at the same time, the author is changing some words and put in his idea also. So you see the word indeed. Indeed, I think this is the writers, right? Indeed mean truthfully, like that, or very importantly. I think this is the attitude marker of the writer. And the word just also, the word just maybe belongs to the writer. So here, what I'm saying is that the attributed part and the verb part just together, just are fused together. So it seems that Fisher says that. Fisher on page 218 says that, oh, it's just is learning how to choose that lies at the root of the socialization process in the child. And also, the writer also inserts his attitude markers like indeed, just, like that. So the two seem to fuse together, right? The attribution and overall. And here is not the direct quotation, meaning you don't see the quotation marks, right? So it means that the writer paraphrases the words of Fisher, but at the same time it's Fisher that originally said that on page 218. So this one is tricky because the two just are fused together in one sentence with the writer's own evaluative markers like indeed or just. Okay, so attribution and overall are the same in this one, right? More or less the same in this one because of the paraphrase, rather than unlike number 14 where you see the actual. You see where you see the actual quotation marks. That part is surely the attribution. But for 15, the two parts, the writer's own statement and then the original idea was paraphrased. So that's why they are fused together. So 15 is tricky. 16. So 16. The methodology in Caltech was crude. Overall, right? So here is clear that the writer is evaluating the methodology, right? The methodology was bad like that, right? So in this case, that part is surely an overall, right? He's evaluating it. It's his idea. Oh, that methodology was bad like that, okay? And then, but shows the beginning of the current emphasis on communicative competence. Same thing, right? The methodology was bad, but it shows the beginning of the current emphasis. Same, right? That it's the author's idea, right? That it has some good part in it. The good part is it shows the beginning of the current emphasis, right? So just like here, the current interest in evaluation, for example, Highland, blah, blah, blah. Here, same thing, Himes, 1972, Canlin, Whittleson. So these are just examples. Nothing has been cited, right? Nothing has been attributed to these guys, right? No words, no paraphrase version of anything, right? So all is overall in here. Number 17. Number 17.
We think the present tense is the overall, and the word small costly is not very prepossessing is the attribute markers.
So there's no attribute marker.
This all the attribute markers, I think. So this present tense is overall.
Yes, so all is overall, right? There's no attribution marker, right? You might be saying, some of you might be saying, oh, Krista, what about by all accounts? Doesn't it mean that some people say that, right? By all accounts, not very prepossessing colony of only 30,000 people. So here, this is base overall, right? I claim that it's not very prepossessing based on some other source, but it's my word, okay? So this is base overall, okay? But no attribution here, as you correctly says it. Number 18.
The two sentences are seen as oral.
Yes.
The first sentence seems to be source to oral because the book can be seen as a source. I'm not sure.
In this case, overall, but not source overall. The first one, the book also accurately evokes the sexual tensions of 50 students' life, right? So here you are summarizing, or you are maybe criticizing the book. The book does this, the book does that, but it's an overall here, but there's no base, right? You might be thinking, oh, the book is the base, the book is the source, right? The book is the source of the information. But no, unlike the source overall, true source overall would be like tests found that, let's say Obama was guilty. Now, this is a true base overall. Here, your interpretation that Obama was guilty is based on the test, right? You base your claim, this is your claim, he was guilty. You base your claim on the test, okay? You base your claim on the test. But here, what you are doing is you are criticizing the book. The book also accurately evokes the sexual tensions of 50 student life. You are not evaluating anyone. What you are evaluating is the book. And your evaluation is not based on anything. It's based on your thinking. It's not based on the test. It's not based on other source, right? Here, you're evaluating Obama, right? Obama was guilty based on the test. You interpret him as being guilty based on the test, okay? But in 18, you are evaluating the book, right? That it accurately, rightly, convincingly evokes the sexual tension based on what? Based on your thinking. It's not based on another source. So that's why it's not a base overall. Because you base it on yourself, not base it on another source, right? So this is not a base overall, okay?
What about number
17.
Number 17 is also based on oral.
Yes, by all account. You base your judgment, you base your evaluation of the island, Gibraltar is an island, right? That is not prepossessing based on accounts of other people. Okay? By all accounts, you listen to other people, you read from this, you read from that source, you base your opinion that is not very prepossessing based on those accounts. But in 18, you base your opinion accurately of books, right? Your opinion about the book, that the book does this accurately, based on what? Based on yourself. So in this case, it's just pure overall, not an overall that's based on another source or source-based overall. Okay? So there's a distinction between 17, you base your evaluation on other people's words, other people's accounts, right? But in 18, is your interpretation that's based also on your thinking, on your thought. So it's not a source overall. For source overall, this overall is your interpretation, right? Or your claim or your assertion. You base it on some other source, not yourself. If you base your interpretation, assertion on yourself, then it's just plain, right? It's just plain overall. Okay? There's a distinction. If you base it on yourself, it's plain, because that's an overall. Overall is the statement that you make, the interpretation that you make. But if you base it on a source, then other than you, it's a source overall. Okay? So there's that distinction. Source overall is not attribution, because it's still your interpretation. Okay? Same thing with in 18, same thing with the latter part. All tool is initially polyaced by the temptations on offer. Same thing, you are evaluating all tool based on your experience. So it's just plain overall, right? Okay. Now, a relevant concept to evaluation is difficult. Evidentiality, and evidentiality from the word evidence, right? So evidence. So when you evaluate something, right? Sometimes you can optionally you can do it, or you might not need to do it. You can optionally evaluate something and you can provide evidence at the same time, right? Markers of evidentiality, we call that evidentials. Okay? Evidentials. Evidentiality has to do with the basis of knowing, basis of knowledge. How did you get that information? Where did you get that information from? Okay? So the source of knowledge, okay? So, of course, when you make an averse statement, right? When you make an averse statement, plain overall, your knowledge, your source of knowledge is yourself, right? And when you make an attribution, the source of knowledge, the source is somebody else, right? So that's broad. But when you make a plain overall, the knowledge is from yourself, but there are many ways to get that information. You might have heard it from someone, you might just be thinking about it, you might just be guessing, you might just, you might have felt it, right? So there are many ways to obtain that knowledge, to obtain that information. So evidentiality has to do with how people mark the source of knowledge, how people mark the basis of knowing in sentences. And in many languages, including Korean, they do it morphologically, meaning they do it to the verb, and they have some endings, they have some suffixes or some endings that English doesn't. So, for example, on page 5, Example 1, nail pika onta, and then nail pika onta ne. Onta ne. They say that the ne here, it's I am told that, I'm told by someone that. So in this case, the speaker optionally marks that as coming from someone else, So it's a marker of evidential, like that. English doesn't do this, right? English doesn't use morphology, right? Or in number 2, you use to, right? Tola koyo, like that, right? So number 2, same thing. That time, John lived in that house. In number A, sautora, right? Sautora koyo, like that. So it means that I saw, I witnessed, I experienced John was living in that house at that time. So you use the tora koyo, in order to say that it's your direct experience, like that. So this is a marker of evidential, right? Or you can just call it an evidential, right? You do it morphologically in Korean. In number B, there's an asterisk, there's a star in front of B. It means that it's not good. It's not a grammatical sentence in Korean, because you cannot say I saw Shakespeare was living in that house at that time, because Shakespeare had long been dead before you were born, like that, right? So to use the evidential marker here is not appropriate, right? Considering the reality, right? Technically, maybe yes, but in reality, no, because Shakespeare had been dead, right? You cannot make that kind of claim. So this is what we call evidentials, right? Or the topic is evidentiality. In English, we cannot do it like this. We cannot mark it on the verb. So we do it how? Lexically. Lexically by using expressions or markers like I hear, I saw, like that. So we do it by words, right? We do it by words. And there are 4 bases of knowledge across languages. Doesn't matter if Korean or English or other languages. There are 4 bases of knowledge. Sensory perception, this is towards the end of page 5. Sensory perception, inference. Inference is based on an inference from visual or tangible evidence or result. Meaning that you may have seen something and you have thought about it, so you make inference, right? You make inference. And assumption has to do with the knowledge that you obtain from believing, from thinking. So sensory is one, sensory, and then inference, and then assumption, and then hearsay, right? Or you can call it qualitative. Okay? Sensory, based on your 5 senses, right? Feel, touch, smell, hear, like that, right? And then see, right? So in English, we mark it as I saw, I felt, I touched, I smell, like that. I hear, I heard, like that. Number 2, inference. So these are evidentials, right? Inference has to do with the second step. After you see something, you feel something, you touch something, you smell something, you hear something, you make some inference. Make an inference based on sensory evidence. So if I see Song Ho today, I can say, oh, he appeared. He appears tired, exhausted. This one, appear. I must have seen him first, right? And then judging from his face, right? Oh, he appears tired. So verbs like appears or seem, like this, they are inference marker. Okay? Why? Because we must have heard his voice, we must have looked at him first, in order to make that inference, right? And then assumption, just things like believe and think. This is not based on any sense, right? Oh, I believe that he's right. I think that he's right. So it's not based on any senses, right? So finally, hearsay or quotative, right? Hearsay or quotative. You quote from someone, meaning you hear it from someone and then you quote, right? Quote could be words or thought. Okay? For example, he told me, blah. Right? So he told me here is an evidential. Okay? So you might have noticed that the hearsay, the quotative, that's attribution, right? For sure, pure attribution, right? Pure attribution. But other things are usually overall. But this one, hearsay or quotative, doesn't matter what you call. You quote the word or you quote the thought of other people, that's attribution, right? Pure attribution. He told me, and so on. He said, the weather forecast said, and so on. So that's hearsay or quotative. Okay? So some languages mark this morphologically, like Korean, right? And you have other verbs like teme, right? Teme, torakuyo, like that. And then tamyon soyo, like that. So you have so many grammatical expressions. But in English, because we don't have a lot of morphological endings, we have to mark it using phrases like he told me, he said that, or I feel, I see, I hear myself, I touch, from touching it, like that, or I guess, I think, or I assume, or he appears, or he seems, like that. Okay, so we'll use this to check. So this is interesting when you analyze this course, because it's interesting to see how people mark the source of knowledge, and it's interesting how people use things or how people use certain things as their evidence in saying something. Or people may choose to not mark it at all, right? This is on page 5. This is on page 5 towards the end. So page 5 towards the end, you have the which was in the house. There is no evidential that is being used here. The which was in the house, that's an averse statement, right? An averse statement. The person just said the which was in the house, okay? There's no evidential. He doesn't tell us the basis of how he knows that, how he came to know that. But optionally, he can use many of these evidentials, right, in order to mark the basis of knowledge. For example, I saw that the witch was in the house. I saw, that's based on your sense, right? Sense of seeing, right? I saw that. So that's the basis of knowledge, right? How he based that, how he obtained that information of the witch was in the house. And then second one, it appeared that the witch was in the house. So again, seemed or appear, he must have thought about it, right? He must have given some thought to it before. So we call it inference marker, seem or appear. Or the witch must be in the house, must be, so he's sure. But he must have made an inference. Oh, it must be because of some reason. So must be is an inference marker also. Because you must have given some thought to it. Next one, I believe that the witch was in the house. This is purely a person's belief, right? Not based on thinking or anything like that, but pure belief. So I believe that, that's the assumption marker, assumption evidential. Last one, I was told that the witch was in the house, right? Somebody told me, I was told. So that's how he obtained that information. This one is different from here, right? Meaning that when you hear it yourself, right? So you experience it based on your ears, right? But when somebody told you, right? When somebody told you, that person is the source of information, right? But when you hear something, you are the source of information like that, okay? So there's a little distinction there. So because we don't have a lot of time and we have a lot of things to finish today, let's go back to page 2. Okay, let's go back to page 2 and do maybe 5 together. You see that we have left basis of knowledge blank, right? Empty for each sentence, right? We know the source, but we have to analyze the basis of knowledge. Where did that person get the knowledge or information from? In number 1, for example, some people watching on TV thought the performance too mannered to appeal to the wider audience at home, right? This is on page 2, right? This is on page 2, the first example that we already did. The source of utterance is self, right? We know that it's an avowal, that one. So the basis of knowledge, how did I get that? How did the self, the writer here, get that information? How did the writer mark that source of knowledge or basis of knowledge? Some people thought the performance too mannered to appeal to the wider audience at home. So how did he know that hearsay, right? Hearsay, thought, right? Thought. So he learned that information because presumably he must have read people's minds. So that's why he said, oh, some people thought that, right? So when you say, oh, he thinks that, of course you have no way to know what that person thinks. You cannot be in that person's brain, right? But linguistically, the marker is thought. So you pretend, or this person pretends to know, right? This person pretends to know that that person is thinking. So it's based on a hearsay, right? Based on a hearsay, meaning he's reading minds of the people. That's how he obtained the information, right? He thought, he's thinking that people thought that, okay? In number two, we underline the performance was too mannered to appeal to the wider audience at home, right? And we say that the source of that information is other people, right? Those people, right? Not the writer anymore. So how did these people get that information or get that knowledge? The performance was too mannered to appeal to the wider audience at home. Inference, close. Sense, no. The performance was, we have to mark, right? The evidential has to do with marker. Where's my mark? Marker of evidence, right? Marker of evidence. The performance was too mannered to appeal to the wider audience at home. Thought the performance was too mannered to appeal to the assumption. They think, right? They think. These people think. So assumption is their thinking, right? Number 3, perhaps the greatest ever footballer. That one comes from the writer, right? How did the writer get that information? Is there a marker or not? Marker of how he obtained that information that he's perhaps the greatest ever footballer. How did he get that information? Is there a marker? Sense, inference, assumption, or taking thought from other people or taking words from other people? No marker. Assumption, because you may be thinking, oh, it's his idea, right? It's his idea, so it's his assumption. That's correct, it's his idea because it's an avowal. But there's no marker that says that that's what he thinks. He doesn't indicate that. You know what I'm saying? Evidentials, again, evidentials have to do with marker or evaluation also. Evaluation, evidentials, or averral or attribution all have to do with explicit marker. So in absence of the marker, then you don't know the source of knowledge. It's not indicated, in other words. Just like the example that I show you, the witch was in the house. Yes, a person must be thinking like that in order to say that out loud, right? But we cannot say that the evidence is the assumption of that person because it's not marked as the evidence. If it's marked, I think that the witch was in the house, then we can say it's an assumption because it's based on thinking. But unless it's marked, we cannot say that there's evidential. That person doesn't give us any evidence, any source of knowledge of that averse statement. Okay? Just like here, perhaps the greatest ever footballer. Yes, it must be that person's thinking, but he just doesn't mark it. Evidentials, again, have to do with how people mark the information as coming from the sense, as coming from guessing, inferencing, as coming from his thinking, as coming from somebody else's words or somebody else's brain, like that. So unless it's marked, we cannot say that it's the source of knowledge. Okay? If he has said, as Pele, in my opinion, the greatest ever footballer, if there's that, then of course it's the assumption marker, right? Number four, we have a marker. Pele, we say that Pele said, right? Pele said that many of the country's young stars appear to be losing touch with the qualities once made them role models. So Pele made that statement. We know that it's an attribution. Now, how is that information marked? The information of many of the stars, many of the young stars losing touch with the quality. How did he obtain that information? From sense, from guessing, from assuming, or from somebody else? You see the word appear, right? Appear. Many of the country young stars appear to be losing touch. So he must have perhaps seen them before and then thought about it, right? Just like Song Ho appeared to be tired, like that. So I must have seen him before and I must have given it some thought. So I came to the more or less conclusion that they appear to be losing touch, like that. So in this case, the word appear marked it as an inference type of evidential. Okay? But be careful, not every case of appear is an inference though. If I say that the ghosts appear, right? So appear here is not thinking, right? Appear here is sankida, just showing up. But appear he appears to be tired, different, right? So this type of appear or this type of seem is an inference marker. The inference marker again is based on the sense, meaning that it's another step. So you must have seen, you must have felt something before, and then you have given it some thought, and then you come to the conclusion. So he appears to be tired based on his facial expression, based on something. So inference is another step after the sensory perception. Okay? Number five. We said that was seen, right? Was seen is an averral. So he's reporting that somebody saw it. Is the writer's statement. Now the basis of knowledge was seen here. That information that the England ace, the Rio Ferdinand, was seen. That information is marked as coming from some source or not. So, from which source? Words or thought? No, right? So not hearsay, qualitative. Believe or think? No, right? Inference? No. Was seen? See, right? So somebody saw him, was seen by Song Ho. Remember? The example was seen by Song Ho. So the information came from the sensory perception. Sensory perception, somebody saw him, but it's unnamed, that person. So sensory perception. Okay, number six, this is drug scandal, same thing. He claims he forgot about the test as he was moving house. We underline that statement and we said that it's an attribution that goes back to the guy, the England ace, right? So he said he forgot, so it's an attribution. Now, that information is marked as coming from where? Hearsay, right? Claim, remember? He claims that, so I heard it, right? So I report what he said. The writer report what he said. So hearsay here, hearsay. Number 7, classic case. The police seem to have good reason to agree with that self-assessment. We say that we agree that it's an averral, remember, based on the writer's interpretation, right? So in this case, the marker of the source of information is seem to. Seem to is inference marker, right? So the writer must have inferred that the police have good reason, okay? Number 8, during her trial, she described herself as an excellent businesswoman. So we focus on excellent businesswoman. That information came from where? From her, right? From her, it's a quotation. It's a quotation, right? We know that it's an attribution. So quotation is hearsay or quotative, right? Same thing as number 9. Same thing as number 9, you see a quotation. So it came from hearsay or quotative source, right? That information. Number 10, the definition lacks persuasiveness. This is the evaluation based on the writer, right? The writer is attacking that definition. Is there a marker of evidential here? Hearsay, no. No see, feel, touch, smell, or hear, no. Inference, no, right? No. Hearsay, no, because it's not marked as coming from someone, right? So it's pure overall. Assumption, no. And inference, no. So there's no marker. If he had said, but I think the definition lacks persuasiveness, then it would be assumption marker, right? But here, in absence of the evidence, there is no marker, okay? Again, evidentials have to do with the explicit marker, right? Everything that we have talked about so far has to do with explicit markers of evaluation, averral, attribution. Everything has to do with marker because speakers have options to mark the evidence or not. Sometimes they don't have to, like tora koyo. You don't have to use it every time, right? If you just want to say that the witch is there, just say it, right? But you can optionally mark it that you experience it yourself, right? Number 11, the underlined part, again, it's a quotation. So clearly it's obtained from a hearsay or quotative, right? Number 12, he looked distraught. I want to add one. Looked also. So inference. He looked distraught, right? So you base it again. you base your inference based on the sensory evidence, right? You must have seen it and then you thought about it, right? He looked here can be paraphrased as he seemed or he appeared, like that, okay? So that's what I want to say about evidentiality. So evidentiality is important when you analyze any discourse like media discourse. Where did the newspaper or news reporter report the evidence that's coming from? Is that marked or is that unmarked, like that? Or in legal discourse, when you have witnesses, when you have the witnesses or expert witnesses in the courtroom, how do they mark the evidence of what they say, right? So this issue is important when you, or in scientific discourse, because in science you are supposed to mark the information, whether it's from an authoritative source or whether it's from your pure personal evidence. Personal, right? Personal evidence. Personal, but it is one step higher than just sensory. And then this is just pure belief. And this is from perhaps from an authoritative source, like that. So in scientific discourse, the issue of evidentials is also important, right? Or in academic writing, the issue of evidential is also important. Where did you get the information from? Sometimes you have to mark what you quote, which is here, right? You have to mark explicitly your information, where it comes from. If it's your belief, then you have to mark it also, right? Sometimes there must be a clear line between what you believe and what other people believe, right? And whether it's your inference based on the results of your experience, the results of your experiments, or whether it's just your sensory perception. So sometimes you have to mark these sources of information, like that. So the next thing that we'll talk about is academic citation practices and responsibility. So I use this as a case study for our class because everyone has to write their dissertation or their thesis. And also, if you are interested in second language writers or second language writing, then this will be good. So for yourself and for your class also, right? And this is a huge area of research for people who are interested in also discourse analysis and also in second language acquisition, right? So as you know that in academic writing, no one is born a native speaker of academic writing, right? We have to learn, everyone has to learn how to write academically. Everyone, native or non-native speakers alike. So no one is born a native speaker. So people have to learn the conventions of academic writing. And we will do academic citations today, right? So academic citations are important because you have to acknowledge where your ideas come from, right? Whether it comes from hearsay or quotative, whether it comes from your inference, whether it comes from your assumption, or whether it's based on your sensory perception. So you have to mark it clearly, right? So that the reader knows, is your idea, is in your inference, or is it something that you quote from some source, right? So in academic citation, this is important because you have to use these type of citations yourself. And there are two types of citation, right? In academic writing, there's the integral type, which means that it's combined. Integral type, we have this in the, but you just don't have the diagram, but here you have all the information. And the non-integral citation. The integral and non-integral. So the distinction is clear for this time. The distinction is clear, very clear, that for the integral type, it has to be part of the syntax of the sentence, part of the syntax. Meaning that it must be, the subject, it must be the object, it must be object of preposition. It has to be part of the syntax of the sentence, okay? But the non-integral is not part of the syntax. The reason why I was hesitating was that if I just said that, oh, you just look for parentheses, then some parentheses count as integral also. So, for example, if I have something like Krishna, okay? 2002 said that blah. This is clear. That is an integral type because it's part of the syntax. It functions as a subject of said, right? If you remove it, it's not working, right? Someone must be, so it's part of the syntax, so we call it the integral type. Or this one is clear, right? Or something like evaluation was analyzed by Highland, 2005. Now, that one is also clear, right? That is part of the syntax. By Highland is the object of by. So it's integral because if you take this out, by what, by who, like that, okay? So this is integral. Or another type, another variation, there's variation like, let's see, here, studies by Highland, 2006, says, 2006, 2015, say that. Again, here is part of the sentence, okay? Part of the syntax, by plus that citation, okay? So here, if you remove the by, remove the Highland 2006, then by is by itself. It doesn't work, okay? So that's why we call these variations the integral type. For the non-integral type, these citations do not form part of the sentence. So you have something like evaluation is, let's say, consists of stance and engagement markers, right? And then Highland 2002, like that. Now you might be thinking, why is not part of the sentence? Because the period goes here and then is in the sentence, isn't it? Right? That might be some of your questions. But here, if you take out this part, the Highland part, then everything sounds perfect. Evaluation is stance and markers. Good. Everything sounds perfect. Unlike here, it's part of the syntax. The syntax is by. If you take out that citation, then studies by say that. It doesn't work. But for the non-integral, here, if you take it out, the sentence still works because it's not part of the syntax of the sentence, right? That's just maybe extra information like that. So there are two broad types, right? The integral type and then the non-integral type, right? And if you follow me along on page 6, so now you know the integral and non-integral, right? If you follow me along on page 6, there are many variations of the non-integral citation. You see that? Under type of citations and then non-integral citation, not part of the syntax of the sentence. Source, you just indicate where the idea comes from, as in citation is central because it can provide justification for argument. Here, Gilbert, 1976 says that citation is central, like that, okay? So you just indicate the source there, right? But then you can use it to identify the agent within the sentence it refers to. Like a simulation model has been developed to incorporate all the important features, and then Potts, 1980. Here, a simulation model has been developed by Potts. You see what I'm saying? By Potts, 1980. So for this one, you identify the agent. The model has been made, the model has been created by Potts. So Potts here is not really the source of that quotation, right? Unlike number 1. But here, Potts is the guy who developed that thing. So you identify the developer, right? So this is different from the first one, right? The first one, you identify the source of that sentence. That's the attribution. But in the second one, pot here, the sentence is not attributed to pot, but pot is the guy who invented that model. So you see the difference between the two. The third one, reference. Reference here is sometimes you need this, that you refer the reader to read the source for themselves. South Korea has changed its policy recently with regard to immigration. See National Immigration Law 2015. So you are telling the reader, go and see that yourself, like that. So this is different, right? And then finally, the origin. Origin is different from identification just a bit. This origin indicates the originator of a concept or a product. Like the corpus software was Wordsmith Tools, Scott 1996, right? For this one, the originator of Wordsmith Tool was Scott 1996, like this. So identification and origin are very, very closely related, okay? But these are the uses of non-integral citation. So when you cite people, there are many reasons why you cite. Can you see this? So you indicate the source of the statement, attribution, which is number one. You identify the developer, number two. You identify the person or the agent, number two. Number three, you do it just to refer to the interested reader. Or number four, you state the origin of an idea or concept, right? So if you cite things like the minimalism framework, Chomsky to 1997 would be origin, like that, okay? Now for the integral citation, you use the integral citation because you want to control the verb. Krista defines stands as. You want to control the verb. Krista defines. You want to make the verb something, right? Krista defines it. Krista argues, like that, right? You want to control your use of verb. Because when you control the verb, you can manipulate your evaluation, right? Krista claims that, but is wrong, like that. Krista claims, Krista argues, Krista demonstrates. So you want to evaluate the verb. That's why you use this part, this type. Or you do the naming. The citation is a noun phrase or part of a noun phrase, not an agent. Like the use of stands in courtroom was shown in Krista 2015. In this case, you name the source, right? You cannot take out Krista 2015 or else it would be ungrammatical. Was shown in what? So that's why it's integral. Or in this paper, Krista's definition of stands has been used. Definitions of here is part of the syntax, apostrophe S. So you name the model definition, you name the definition. Or studies by Krista, like that. And then non-citation. Sometimes people don't cite when nearby they already cited. Krista 2015 investigates the use of stands in the courtroom. The researcher finds that. The second sentence you don't have to cite because you already did in the first one, like that. Okay? Now the relationship, this is the last thing that we'll talk about today. The relationship between overall attribution and citation here, right? That when you cite, typically it's attribution, right? It's attribution, right? Typically it's attribution because when you cite like this, when you cite with quotation marks, Krista defines stands as blah. Here, this is a clear case of attribution, right? When you cite directly, right? Or Krista argues that blah, if it's a paraphrase. Krista 2008, like that. These two cases, direct quotation or indirect quotation or paraphrasing, right? You can do two. These two cases are attribution for sure, right? These two cases are attribution for sure. But when you do non-integral citation, most of them are overall. Most of them are overalls, okay? For example, studies many studies convincingly analyze evaluation. And then Krista 2002, 2015, like this. This is non-integral, right? It's not part of the syntax of the sentence. It's in the parentheses, and you can take it out freely without affecting the structure of the sentence. Many studies convincingly analyze evaluation. For example, Krista 2002 to 2015, like this. This one is not attribution anymore. These two are, right? Because you quote directly or you paraphrase, so you point to the source. But this one, many studies convincingly analyze evaluation. Here is a verse statement with the writers here convincingly evaluation, right? So in this type of case where you have non-integral citation, most of them will be overalls. Okay, most of them will be overalls. So this is the distinction that you have to take in mind. Do you want to do evaluation? Do you want to do evaluation like clearly? Evaluation clearly, you should use the non-integral site. But if you have to do just minimal evaluation, you have to use this type, right? The integral type. Because you can do evaluation here, Krista claims instead of define, like that. You can do minimal evaluation with this type. And with this type, what is important is the people, right? The people here. Krista define, Krista claims, Krista argues. The people are important. But for the non-integral type, people are not important. That's why they are far away. That's why they are in the parentheses. What's important is your idea. So when you write something, make a decision as to what you want to emphasize. If you want to emphasize your idea, if you want to let your ideas shine, here, non-integral. Have people somewhere not part of the sentence, okay? As examples, as reference, like that. See further, like that. But if you want to make the people shine, then you have to do the integral type, especially the verb controlling type, because remember, this is the theme, right? Theme of the sentence. That's where the focus of attention is, right? So you have to make that decision. It's not all citations are equal, no. People strategically, when people write, they strategically choose this type or this type depending on their purpose. Not just anything is important. Or people just do this all the time. According to, according to Krista 2002, blah. If you use one type all the time, 계속 하면 돼요? 안 돼요. You have to have some variety, right? You have to have some variety of this type of thing. According to, or if you just keep saying Krista says that, Krista says this, he says that, he says it. No, not good, right? So next time we'll come back and look at some problems that writers have. One problem is, as I already pointed out, lack of variety. If you keep doing according to or Krista says, Krista argues, 안 돼요, right? Because you have to think about what's important. The writer is important or not, or your idea is important or not, or examples are important or not. Things matter, right? Your choices matter. People strategically use this to write. So to write well, your knowledge, or you have to have an awareness of how citations are used. Maybe, let's see. Oh, another problem is people evaluate wrong things. If you say something like, prominent scholar of discourse studies, Krista 2015 argues. Here, 안 돼요 also. Why? you evaluate the person. Not good for academic writing. For other things, maybe it's good, but for academic writing, you evaluate the work of people, not person. So you may say pioneering work, okay? Pioneering work by, this is integral, right? By Chris Da, 2015, reveals that. That's okay because you evaluate this, right? But this is not good in academic writing because you evaluate wrong thing, right? And you have to vary the verb here, define or say. If you keep saying say all the time, Krista says, Highland says, not good. Or claim all the time, not good, right? And you have to have a variety of things, right? And another problem is people sometimes cite all the time, which is not good. So when you cite all the time, where is your idea? Your idea is not allowed to shine, right? So you have to cite and then evaluate. Like Krista defined the stance as this, but that definition cannot be applied to my study. You evaluate it, right? After you cite, you evaluate it like that. Or Krista convincingly defined, so you evaluate the definition like that. So all the time you have to do evaluation, right? Not just cite for citation's sake. So cite for yourself, for evaluating, right? So that you can evaluate the idea as good or bad, as can be applied or not applicable to your study like that. So next time we'll come back and continue along this theme that why it matters to choose different forms of citation, right? So we'll come back to this part and then we'll go on to another topic, which is metaphor, okay? So thank you for today and I'll see you guys back here next Wednesday.